from this, and I just really wanted to take you through where we were at, and then we're going to discuss it over drinks. So we did recognise some time ago that all of our buyers were grappling with what sort of ESG questions they needed to ask of their service providers. Simultaneously, all of our service providers were going, oh my God, if I get another local questionnaire land on my desk, I think I might, do a runner. So we thought, what must our role be in this? So we collated the questionnaires from a whole host of our enterprise buyers, and it was really, really interesting just how different those questionnaires were. So from Schroders, for example, we got a 12 question questionnaire that fitted on one page of A4. From Meta, we got, honestly, there was probably like 12 spreadsheets of questions just on scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. It's a very, very different sort of questionnaire. But we thought there must be a role of actually aggregating those questions. And so we've developed one standard questionnaire that we're making available for our enterprise buyers to use. And we are now actually exploring the opportunity of the GSA actually being the repository holder of the responses of those questionnaires across our service provider community. So instead of every single service provider having to answer that question time and time again, there's an opportunity for them just to come to the GSA and actually present that information. And I think we are actually at a point now that we believe that we can actually become the verifier that information is actually factually correct. So these are just some of the collaborators that worked with us on this programme. We are developing it into a full GSA best practice guide. We have included an overview of all the different bodies to help people point people in the direction of what actually is out there. It is a minefield, and that minefield is growing all the time. These are just some of the bodies. We do deep dive into what the role of each of these bodies are in our best practice guide. There are a whole host of accreditations. We include what all those accreditations are in our best practice guide, and then what the tools are. As I say, it is a minefield. I'm whistling you through this incredibly quickly, which doesn't really do justice to the work that we've done. But hopefully it will pique your interest and you'll come and chat to me afterwards. So we have put forward what our proposed approach to assessment actually is. There's a level 1 approach, which is basically a dichotomous question. It's a yes and no answer. And there's a level 2 approach, which will really look at actually sort of like, no, we need a lot more. So the dichotomous was the very basic, response. Then there's a much more detailed approach that actually asks, yeah, all right, you're doing this. Can you share your targets? Can you share your statistics? Can you attach evidence that proves you're actually doing this? Can you share policies and certificates that prove you're actually doing this? Level 3 approach is where the buyers are actually asking their service providers, right, you're not just doing this, you're not just sharing how well you're doing this, I really want to know whether you can help me do this in this contract. So what can you bring to the party for me as well? So and then level 4 is how can you actually help us improve our overall ESG related performance. So this is where we really are bringing value to the buyer. And then we were just looking at how you'd actually market. So for the dichotomous questions, it would be very much like which ones, if it's a no, they're out. If it's a yes, you could go down that sort of route. And then when it came to level 2, level 3, level 4, we were proposing a marking criteria approach. So you mark 1 for their performance was very basic, 3 perhaps if they were advanced, and 5 if they were advanced and consistently doing it. So this is our sort of like proposed approach. And these are just a smattering of the questions. This isn't our question set. This is just a few of the questions that we've actually put forward in our question set. So you can see there's all sorts of questions that relate to have your targets be validated by the Science Based Targets Initiative. Do you have policies and procedures in place to minimise your waste? I'm not going to read them to you, but it just gives you a smattering of the sort of questions that we've got on the environmental journey. So everything from safe water to recycling to single-use plastics to use of landfill, all the sort of things that we think are important. And then obviously things like, data centre operations, green, renewables, all of those sort of things are within the E part of our questionnaire. We then have the social aspect of our questionnaire, and we think for our industry that social should have a much, much, much greater weighting when you're assessing a BPO or a service provider than perhaps the E and the G, because we are a people-led industry. So these are some of the questions we've got under the S for social. Is your company a living wage foundation accredited living wage employer? What are your average payment dates to suppliers? All sorts of, are you looking at gender, supplier diversity? Are you a certified minority-led business? We're looking at everything across social through supplier diversity, DEI, all of those things within our social aspect of the questionnaire. Do you have any diversity goals or targets? Does your company have a responsible automation program? All of these things we think are very diverse but are really, really important questions that buyers should be asking of their service providers. And we've put it into, I'm just giving you a smattering in this presentation, we've put it into a much more cohesive questionnaire with the marking, the ranking and the dichotomy and all of that actually next door to it. So I haven't put the governance questions in because I believe our industry is really, really good at governance anyway, but there is a whole host of questions on governance as well. So our proposed approach is that this questionnaire is used by all of our buy-side members, that they give to their main service providers, perhaps tailored by those that have the vast majority of their spend, that it needs to be evidenced now and that it needs to be reviewed annually, and we're putting ourselves forward as being the organisation that will actually assist in collating that data, holding that data and verifying that data if the community thinks it's a good idea. So that's just some of the work that the GSA has been doing on the ESG agenda. And one of the ideas here actually was to create it into a service provider sustainability maturity index. So this would not be a name and shame index, it would be very much these players are absolutely leading the field, these are ones we need to be looking at, these are ones that we can learn from, but those that are at the bottom of the index would not be exposed as being poor performers, but they would be being shared the information of the best performers so that the whole industry can improve and grow and can drive and make a real difference. And then I did say that I was going to wind in my gender pay gap reporting information as well. So I'm going to whistle stop through this. It is 5 slides, and then that is it. We are finished, I promise. So what's really interesting is that we're talking about us being a people-led industry. We're talking about putting much more weight behind the S of ESG because we are focused on people, we're focused on social, we're focused on DEI. Yet we're performing really, really badly still in gender pay equality. So we all know what gender pay is. It's been in place in the UK that every organisation in the UK that employs more than 250 people since 2017 has needed to report on their gender pay information. This bit here, the third point down is really quite important because there's 2 ways of measuring it. There's measuring it by the mean and there's measuring it by the median. The general consensus is that to get the most fair representation and result is you should measure it by the median so that it can't actually be skewed by a small number of highly paid individuals. One thing that was very interesting that we monitored throughout the pandemic is more than 50% of UK companies that needed to actually report on the gender pay gap information chose not to do it when the British government waived the requirement to do it during the pandemic. So I think that is showing something really quite significant that companies, if they didn't have to report it, chose not to report it. and that the average median gender pay gap in the UK was 8.3% in 2022. Okay, if we look at it across, and we actually took the stats from 65 companies that we see operating in our space that had to report on the data. These were the stats. So if it's 8.3% on average for a UK company, we are batting at 14% in the global technology and business services industry. So we're significantly above industry average. This is the 65 companies that we tracked. And gender pay gap information varied from -6% to +41%. So if you were a buyer, right now, where would you like your organisation to be? And the same question really, if you're buying, and where would you like your service provider to be? Chris, I'm going to ask you that question. Where would you like? Yeah.
0, of course.
Yeah, 0, of course, yeah. Where does anybody think that they might be? I don't know if anyone's willing to put their hand up and put a guess where they might be, because your name might probably be on here. Right, who do you think is the best performing company that is -6%? Any ideas? I'm going to expose all the names in a second, so I'm going to start getting sweaty palms. You can't see it because it's so tiny. Right, G4S had -6%. So I guess that's because they employ a lot of security guards that probably aren't high earning, that are male, that actually kind of skew it. It was actually a law firm, and thankfully not NHS Sutherland, that had a 41% gender pay gap, and that was Slaughter and May. So this is the information of where the gender pay gap information actually resides. So you can have a quick look. Everyone's going to sort of like, oh, where am I in that? Where am I in that? If you're not in there, I will make sure to find you if you're reporting. So,
my eyes can't see it. I don't see your focus.
So yes, makes fairly interesting reading. That we just generally have a lot of work to do to close the gender pay gap. And just to close, the very final stats are that the woman in the top pay quartile is currently only 33% of women in our industry are in the top pay quartile. And the percentage difference in bonus pay for women compared to men is 15%. What was that? So yes, 15% down from what men actually get. So yes, that's the closing slides that I did say that we were going to present a little bit early on. A lot of work to be done for our industry, but a lot of potential for our industry. So I want to close really on a high, and that is that I truly, truly do believe that we are in a position of driving some significant change across the ESG agenda, and that we do have an opportunity for our industry, the industry that is the buying and the delivery of technology and business services, to be seen as a leading industry, an industry for good, an industry that really is driving positivity, is eradicating poverty, is driving social change and behaviours, and can really make a difference to the world. And those videos, yeah, we're not going to see any more of those, hopefully. Yes, we can circumvent it. So thank you all very much for joining me. Thank you so much to NHS Sutherland. Thank you to all of our event partners, so that includes ADEC, Omni, IEOP, GTMBOC, and NHS Sutherland, as they again. So there are drinks next door. We've made it a slight party festival vibe, and we have some entertainment, so it should be a really fun
and loads of food. So please
all
stay and eat it.
And then tomorrow we have a full house. I think we're really over capacity tomorrow. We've got something like 160 people registered to come and join us to talk about supplier diversity. I really hope you are amongst them. So let's take the conversation through to the drinks. So thank you all very much.